Welcome, everybody, to the High Return Real Estate Show. This is Jeff Schechter, aka Shecky, with my amazing and wonderful business partner, Mr. Jack Gibson. How are you, Jack?
Doing great, Shecky. How are you, bud?
I'm fantastic. And dude, I am so excited for this episode because we have got, really, this is going to be the best real estate interview ever. Because we have got, the amazing Joe Fairless on today, who I'm going to bring on in just a minute. But this is going to be a rocking show. It's probably one of the best podcasters out there, and arguably probably one of the most successful real estate investors in the country. So this is going to be just a dynamite interview. Very, very excited about it. So put your seatbelts on, everyone. You are in for a great ride. Welcome to the High Return Real Estate Show, the podcast for heavy hitters. 2 men, 1 mission. It's time to build your empire. Welcome back, everybody. This is Shecky, and I am so excited to introduce this man. Mr. Joe Fairless if you don't know who he is, I'd be surprised if you're in real estate investing, because pretty much everybody in our space knows who he is, but a full-time real estate investor that started buying multifamily properties in 2013. And he had some very, very humble beginnings, which he'll talk about, back in 2009, but now is controlling over $300 million worth of real estate. And he's personally raised over $100 million from private investors. And prior to that, he was a very, very young vice president at an award-winning ad agency in New York City. But the cool thing is, he is the host of the world's longest-running daily real estate iTunes podcast called The Best Real Estate Investing Advice Ever. And it's a great show. And on his show, he's interviewed such guests as Barbara Corcoran, Robert Kiyosaki, Emmitt Smith, Tony Hawk. So we are very, very, very excited to have you here. So welcome, Joe Fairless. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, and thanks a lot for having me on the show. I'm grateful for this and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I know Jack is too, because we actually get to not only interview the interviewer, but I feel like we're interviewing a little bit of a royalty in the real estate investing world. Obviously some of those numbers we talked about in the intro are just gargantuan. And so very, very excited to dive into that. And, obviously the first question when you go through an intro like that is, how the heck were you able to control over $300 million worth of real estate so quickly? Like, what's the trick to this?
I've done a lot of interviews on my podcast, and one of them was Robert Kiyosaki, and he mentioned the richest people in the world build a network and everyone else looks for work. And you two get that because you got a podcast and you're putting yourselves out there. And that's something that I did not understand initially as an entrepreneur, but as I read more and more about personal development, I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, all sorts of other people. I was driving to my house earlier, and I just had it on a YouTube channel, just listening to different motivational speeches and TED Talks, and that's just what I do. And through all of that, I learned when I build a network, and I add value to a lot of people, quote, I think Zig Ziglar gets attributed to it, helping up people get what they want, and you'll eventually get everything you want, then things are going to shake out. And certainly it's more complicated than what I just said. You have to do more than just build a network. But I mean, the way to go farther faster is have a platform where that is consistently growing. So I suggest an interview-based platform like a podcast, like what you two are doing, not just a podcast where you're speaking into the microphone, but actually speaking to another person, so that at the end of, or when the episode goes live, or if it's a blog, or if it's a meetup or whatever, then the interviewee will actually share it out. Just like I'm going to do with this interview, I'm going to share this out with my audience. Therefore, guess who also gets exposure? You two. And it's a beautiful partnership when that happens. So one, how did I get this far this fast? I had a platform, and I have a platform. Two is there's a 3-step process for scaling my business and scaling your business and anyone else who's listening's business. And one is we've got to identify what skill sets are required in order to achieve massive success in whatever we're looking to do. So in my case, there's a lot of skill sets required to do apartment syndication. And one is we got to have money. So if we don't have the money, I did not have the money to build a $300 million plus portfolio. So I had to partner with, and I get to partner with accredited investors. So that's one skill set. There are many. I won't go into all of them. We don't have enough time for that. But once all the skill sets are identified for whatever industry that we're in, to have massive success, then we got to look in the mirror and have an honest opinion and assessment of ourselves and what skill sets are we very good at within the realm of what's required. And it's likely not going to be all of the things that we need to be good at. So then the third thing is to bring on people who complement our strengths and can do those other skills. So speaking specifically, one thing that I'm good at is working with investors and making sure we got all the money we need for all our deals. From a high level, there's 3 components to apartment syndication. 1 is money, 2 is deals, and 3 is execution. And I'm very good at one of those 3. I'm average at finding deals, and I'm average at asset management. So I simply took a look at who I could partner with, and I ended up partnering with someone who is incredible at finding deals and also asset management. And that formula can be applied to anyone who's listening to business to help them scale quicker than what's normal.
God, man, you are you're preaching to the choir. I'm sitting here thinking about the way our business is structured as you're rolling all that out, and it's very, very congruent with what we have been up to the last year or so, like within the inner workings of our business. So yeah, man, spot on. Thank you for that. That is beautiful. So just curious, what's the biggest mistakes that you've made along the way? I mean, obviously we learn a lot from our mistakes, and what do you think is the biggest one, and what was the lesson behind it?
Tons of mistakes, clearly tons of mistakes. I'd say one that comes to mind is on the topic of the richest people in the world build a network, everyone else looks for work, is I didn't understand that at the beginning. And I was instead trying to make a buck. I was trying to work on the tactics and work on the short-term game, and trying to get a deal. And the challenge I had, which is what most people come across whenever they're starting out in apartment syndication, is that they don't have the experience or the money or the the knowledge to actually put a deal together. So the mistake is that I didn't realize that I needed to build a network of people first. And I need to think about the long game first, versus trying to do the short game. Tim Ferriss talks about that all the time. And it's tough to actually put into practice whenever you've got to put food on the table. It's tough to say, okay, yeah, Joe, but man, I need to actually pay my mortgage. I have a hard time thinking about this long game you're talking about, where I need to build a network and I need to add value to the network. And I'm just trying to, make ends meet. I get that. I suggest you do make the ends meet, but I would guess that there's likely 1 hour in your day that you could invest in building a network so that you are simultaneously playing the long game. And that's what I didn't understand. So there's an opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is that while my company is well over $300 million, depending on when this airs, we're probably going to be around $400 million worth of assets under management. And to speak plainly, what that means is that my company has over or approximately $400 million worth of apartment communities that we own, along with the private accredited investors that we partner with. So I do not personally own 100% of the $400 million portfolio, but I probably own about 15-20% of that portfolio, maybe about 15%. So there's still a lot of money there, and it's something that I could also be farther than where I am today, should I have embraced that network effect at the very beginning versus coming across it through my education on personal development.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. Love it. I know that Jack and I are, big on building networks, and Jack's been a pro at that for many, many years in his other business. And, obviously as we grow our company and our base of investors, that becomes hugely important to us. So thank you so much for sharing that. May I ask a personal question, because I found out a little bit of stuff about you?
Absolutely. What do you got?
All right.
It depends,
Tell me
right?
straight, man. What's the obsession with Third Eye Blind?
I really appreciate and respect bands and artists who write songs from their heart, regardless of if I agree with what they write about. So, for example, Eminem. I mean, clearly that guy has some messed up lyrics, but I respect that he is writing and staying true to who he is, at least from what I can tell from an outsider's perspective. So with Third Eye Blind, same thing, although I agree with more of their lyrics than Eminem's. Plus it's pretty catchy.
Yeah, but you've been to like hundreds of their shows, right?
I've been to a lot, maybe not 100, but I'm approaching 3 digits. I just actually saw them a month and a half ago. Yes, I guarantee I've been to more Third Eye Blind concerts than anyone listening to this podcast, and perhaps combined across your entire audience, for better or worse.
That's awesome. Okay, one more personal question. Let me just get this one in, Jack. Then you can ask your question, because being a single. I heard that you had basically figured out that the love of your life, you knew this within 1 month. Is this accurate information?
It is accurate information. I met Colleen when I was visiting Cincinnati for work, and actually we met on Tinder, the dating app, and I was about to submit a TED Talk proposal for why dating apps don't work, and that's a whole nother story for why I was thinking that. Thank goodness I didn't, because I would have been a walking, contradiction and a big old hypocrite if I did actually get that the talk submitted and accepted. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I went on a whole lot of dates in New York City. It's pretty easy with dating apps, and plus New York City, knew what I was looking for, knew what I wasn't, and then met her and ball game. And one thing I did. I have a life coach through Tony Robbins, the Tony Robbins program, and he asked me to write down 25 things that I'm looking for, and then also separately 25 things I bring to that relationship. So it actually made me more aware of who I need to be and become in order to attract someone who I was looking to attract. And that's an exercise we can do not only for relationships, but also as real estate professionals. Who do I want to be? And then list out your goals, and then list out, okay, now who do I need to become in order to achieve that?
Yeah, God, Beautiful. And I love how you tied it into business. And Jack and I were on a podcast, I don't know, the day before yesterday, and we were just talking about, exactly that. And, some of the smartest and most important things that we've done to accelerate our business and accelerate our income has really all been under the umbrella of personal development.
Yep.
That always returns the highest investment.
So,
Yep.
Joe, what did you?
It's hard for anyone who's not focused on studying personal development to really be like, okay, yeah, just give me some tactics. That's what I used to say. But the more I studied successful people, the more I realized how important it was to focus on me. Jim Rohn talks about, you want things to get better, then you need to get better. And I embrace that.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's pretty much the slogan that I live by. So that's awesome to hear you say that. So Joe, how did you actually get started? Like, what was your first real estate deal? I mean, was it syndication, or did you start smaller with some, single family rentals, or what was the
$76,000 house in Duncanville, Texas. Oh, this is actually pretty cool. I didn't even think about this, but we're about to come full circle. So I'll tell you why in a second. So $76,000 house in Duncanville, Texas, is about 15 minutes south of Dallas. I bought that in 2009. I was ready to buy a house in January of 2009. I looked, ran numbers, and it wasn't until October of 2009 that I bought my first house. I was living in New York City, but I was investing in Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm from Dallas-Fort Worth, so there was some familiarity. Plus, I couldn't afford anything in New York it didn't make sense to buy there. And now I mention this coming full circle because we are closing on a 300 unit plus apartment community in 7 days from now in Duncanville, Texas. And it is now, it's worth over $30 million. And we just got awarded another deal over 300 units in Duncanville, Texas. And that, again, is a similar value. So I've been investing for, 9 years. And I did not have a lot of money when I started. I was making $30,000 at a New York City advertising agency as a junior project manager. Didn't have any savings and had about 20K worth of student loans. I just climbed the corporate ladder relatively quickly. Then I was just saving all my money, most of my money. I'd go out with friends and stuff like that. But I kept my rent low. My friends would make fun of me because I was living like a college kid because I'd always have a roommate. I have a dorm style refrigerator, and there was no living room in the apartment. It was just 2 bedrooms, a hallway, a bathroom, and an oven. And, I just realized that single family homes, I bought 4 of them. I realized single family homes weren't going to make me financially free, although they certainly can make someone financially free. But it was just the scalability was what I was concerned about, because I was making $250 a pop on a home. Then someone would move out, I'd pay $5,000 for expenses to fix it up, and then that wipes away the profit. Now again, I totally get how someone could do that and scale, because I've interviewed a lot of people who have, but it just wasn't for me. So then I decided to go into multifamily.
How quickly did you get into multifamily from that very first deal? Like, what was that time?
2013. So 2009 to 2013, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. So
what's your
4 years.
So that's pretty quick. So what's your take, Joe, on the current state of real estate in America? Are you feeling like cash flow is the play? Appreciation still is, available? What's your strategy more entail?
My strategy is consistent with what we've been doing and what we will continue to do, and that is we buy value-add deals that cash flow from day one. So when a correction takes place, which I believe there will be a correction next year, maybe 24 months from now, I don't exactly know, but based on what I've been reading, people I've been speaking to, something's got to give, right?
Yep.
It can't just continue to go up and up and up.
Sure.
So what we follow is what I call the 3 immutable laws of real estate investing. One is you buy for cash flow, not appreciation. We force appreciation through interior renovations of our apartment units, which increases the rent, and then we increase the value of the apartment community. But when a correction takes place, we're not going to renovate. Instead, we'll scale back renovations or we'll discontinue altogether, but we originally bought a cash flowing property, so we'll just sit on it. Anyone who was cash flowing a property in 2008 did not get in trouble, did not have to give it back to the bank. The people who had to give it back to the bank are people who had a negative cash flow and they couldn't support that on a monthly basis. Or the second thing, so first we buy for cash flow, not appreciation. The second thing is that we put long-term debt on our properties. So in 2008 hit, if you were just unlucky or weren't planning properly and your loan became due, well, you're not getting financing or you're not getting any favorable terms. That's for darn sure. So instead, we put now long-term financing on our property so that when a correction does take place, we can ride it out and we're not going to be put in the corner forced to sell. And then the third thing, so one is buy for cash flow, not appreciation. 2 is have long-term debt. And then the third thing is simply have adequate cash reserves. So regardless of what comes, when it comes, if we buy for cash flow, have long-term debt, and have adequate cash reserves, and specifically what I mean by that is approximately or specifically 5 to 7% of the equity we bring to every deal goes towards cash reserves. When a dip in occupancy occurs or rent soften or whatever happens, we have a cash flow, an operating account rather, that we can dip into should we need to.
What is your take? And this is my last question, Shecky. I know you got more on the list. What is your, what's your philosophy on as far as long-term debt? Like what percentage do you actually leverage?
We do between 70 and 75%.
So you're
Depends on the deal.
Pretty aggressive then with what you're doing.
Yep. We have to, well, we don't have to do anything, but we choose to do 70 to 75% because that also gets our investors the returns. It's a fine line of doing 65% or 50%. Well, when we do that, then the cash on cash returns won't be as great for our investors. But if we did 80% or 85%, then that defeats the purpose of having a conservative loan. So we like to be 70, 75%.
Perfect.
Yeah, seems like a good sweet spot. So I know I got to tell you, you have, I mean, I love being a podcaster, but dude, you've got an amazing podcast. And I know you hit it hard and you've got an incredible work ethic. And you have amazing guests on, like my business partner, Jack Gibson. So it must be a great show.
Oh, God.
But, it wasn't until Jack came on.
I know,
man. Then the ratings just shot up.
Your ratings shot up. Like you were getting just 2 stars reviews, and then all of a sudden they just hit 5 every time.
Yeah, exactly.
But I want to give you an opportunity because just what you talked about creating a network, but the way you're going about doing it is just really nothing short of inspirational with what you've done with your podcast. It's definitely, one of the best podcasts out there for sure in the real estate world. And I know you've got a book coming up, and I just want to give you a chance to speak freely about all the stuff that you are doing and let our listeners know some of the resources that you have available. It's
a book that was created. My business or my coworker of mine, employee of mine, I guess I should say, Theo and I wrote this book. It was written because there's a gap. There's a big old void in apartment syndication step-by-step process guides. There isn't one out there until now. We've got the book that is coming out. By when this podcast airs, it should be out. And the book is the best apartment syndication book ever. And it literally walks you through the 10-step process I followed to go from making that $30K at a New York City advertising agency to now approximately, depending on when this airs, $400 million worth of apartment communities. And, you know, it answers questions like, hey, I got the desire, but I don't have the track record. Then we talk about how you can get that track record by partnering in some specific proven ways. Or how do I get private money? How do I get investors to believe in me? What type of, or should I invest as an apartment syndicator passively first and then go active? What's all the terminology I need to know? All that stuff. It's a step-by-step process. And during pre-launch, so pre-release, and then during the first week, we've got a special package that if you buy it and then email the receipt to info@joefairless.com, you're going to get a bunch of valuable goodies. I know Gene Trowbridge is one person who's already signed up for that. He's given away his apartment syndication book, which I got a lot of value from. He's a securities attorney, and we'll give that to you, a digital version of that to you when you buy the book during the pre-launch. So you go on Amazon, just search best apartment syndication book ever and buy it, email the receipt to info@joefairless.com, and we'll get you all the free goodies as long as you buy it before it launches or during launch week.
Well, it's great. Since my mom's probably the only one listening to this podcast, I hope she buys your book. I mean,
that's right. Your dog should be listening too, right?
Right.
Mom and a dog. Yeah.
We forgot to tell you. That's
about how it was with mine too.
Downloads. We only have a couple downloads.
No, that's great. We will make sure to put it in the show notes. Joe, I know you're short on time, and we probably only got time for a couple more minutes. But just to wrap up, is there any question that Jack and I asked that we didn't ask that we should have?
Can't think of anything.
Okay.
I got out of that one quick.
Yeah, you weaseled it out of that. That's my favorite question.
Oh man, he killed it. That's the best question ever.
Well, you know what?
Ever asked.
Since your mom's the only one listening, if she has a follow-up question for me, then she can just call me up directly and I'll talk to her.
All right, Mom. Yeah.
Joe, thank you. How many episodes have you done, Joe, in your podcast? And what kind of
over 1,400. Over 1,400.
You've done 1,400?
Yeah.
And you're still married, and you still go to Third Eye Blind.
That is correct. Yes,
Okay.
I batch them. So I interview about 8 people on a Monday or Tuesday, and I don't interview anyone else. And it accrues from there. So I'm about 20 days out. That way I can live a life.
Do you feel like just with the amount of volume of episodes that's helped build your podcast to where it is today?
Absolutely. As long as it's interview based, because every person I interview, they then share it out to their network, and then that grows my reach.
Nice.
There's a lesson for us, Jack.
Better get to work.
Yeah, we better get to work. Joe, thank you.
You're going to do it.
Yeah, Joe, thank you so much. And I know you're a busy guy, and really, really appreciate the time you took out today to speak with us and share your wisdom with our listeners. And it's just fun and great to talk with you.
Hey, grateful for hanging out with you too. And hi, Mom. Hi, dog. And hi, anyone else who comes across this.
Who could possibly come across this by luck or chance. Actually, we are growing a pretty good following. So we will definitely push it on, put your book launch in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, you too.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Good luck with your closing too on your bigger deal coming up.
Yes, thanks.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.